Now, it is that time on a Tuesday afternoon when we talk relationships, and I am joined now by David Kavanagh, who is our resident relationship expert. And this week, as we often do, we want him to deal with a listener query that came in by email, and I'm going to read it to you. And let me know as well, 53106, what you think of this too. Someone says, "Hi Ciara and David, I'm very frustrated with my best and oldest friend. She's 58 and she's been married for 30 odd years and has 3 grown-up children who've moved out and are living their own lives. She's always had a difficult relationship with her husband. He was always a good father to the children and provider for the family, but he's emotionally cold and detached. 2 years ago, she found out he was having an affair. It also emerged that he had cheated on her many times over the course of their marriage. He owned up to it and they've reconciled. However, she's still miserable. She says she's staying with him because they married and that means for life. But I don't understand why. The kids don't need them to be together now, so what is the point? I separated from my husband 5 years ago and I've never looked back. I tried to tell her she'll be happier without him, but she won't listen. Her sister has also had arguments with her because she feels she should leave him too. What can we do to encourage her to leave him once and for all?" David Kavanagh, over to you. What do you think about this query?
It's a very tough one, isn't it? Just to pick up on the listener's last question, what can we do to encourage her to leave him? I don't know that there's anything you can do. I mean, I think it's a very difficult situation to find yourself in as a friend, or even as a sister, to find that you care about somebody who's in a situation or a relationship that's probably not in their best interests. But ultimately, adults are adults. We've said that here in the last couple of weeks. People can make their own decisions for themselves. If there's a thing called spousal Stockholm syndrome that might be at play here, which is the idea that even if our relationship with our husband or wife isn't that good, spousal Stockholm syndrome tells us that it's okay, that certain situations are actually tolerable, and that we'd be much worse off if we leave that individual. It's kind of like a brain fog that comes over people, and that can be at play, and that can stop this particular individual maybe from leaving her husband, despite the fact that he's cheated on her and all these terrible things have happened. So that might be at play. It's really hard to tell, but I haven't met the person.
Do you know what? I have to say, when I read it, I thought this: what can we do to encourage her to leave him once and for all? It's not their place, to be honest, because a couple of things. You don't know what really goes on inside anyone else's relationship.
Exactly.
And yes, he's had affairs or whatever he's done, but for whatever her reasons, she may be reconciled to that. She may be like, well, that's fine, and for all you know, she's had an affair that she hasn't told them about. You don't actually know. But you also don't know this. She could be paying lip service to this friend who is now separated, who doesn't like her husband and the sister, and she could actually be, in her own way, happy enough with the status quo, but doesn't want to tell them because they might think less of her. Like, you don't really know what the wife in this wants. And also, she is 58. Maybe she's thinking, do you know what, our relationship has moved into a new companionable phase anyway. Let bygones be bygones. I think there's something very peculiar in somebody from the outside looking in going, she should leave and I'm trying to make her leave, and why doesn't she see she should leave, when we don't really know whether she should leave or not.
No, we don't, and it's like a projection of that particular individual's experience of, well, I left my husband, so therefore everybody else who's unhappy should leave theirs. But that's not really how it works. That can't just be the case.
I totally think so too. And there are complicated reasons. Marriage is not the same at 20, at 30, at 40, at 50, at 60. It's just not.
It changes, and people's expectations of marriage, as you said, companionship is a huge thing for people as they get older. You start off in your 20s and 30s, it's about lust, technically speaking. It's really about the chemistry. But then
it's
when
also,
that's gone,
when you're young and you start off a marriage, you think marriage needs to be starry-eyed, and that they have to be your best friend and your lover and your
everything
and
your
your this,
all.
that and the bloody
That's
other. And as you go on, you can barely tolerate each other.
Pretty much.
And if you can rub along, maybe that's okay. I don't know, and I'm not saying that she shouldn't leave, but I just find it funny that this friend is so insistent that she knows what this woman should do. But also there's something in this: I'm separated for 5 years, and she should separate too. Do you think maybe the friend wants somebody to be in the same boat as her?
Yeah, potentially, and somebody to go for lunch with, and somebody to have the chat with, and say, yeah, you're right. That wasn't it the best thing you ever did was in leaving him? But that's not really how it works. You kind of have to you have to live your own life and go on your own journey.
And what would you advise? Supposing you're advising two people here, David, and I also want to get to a text that's come in that's actually made my jaw drop. Let me go to the text first of all and just ponder this, but I wanted to ask you about the email. The text has just come in, and actually my jaw, it says, "Hi Ciara, I have just found my sister in bed with my partner of 11 years. I am heartbroken. I trusted them both completely. Now 2 families are broken. I do not know how I'm going to get through Christmas." That's an awful text,
Terrible.
Isn't it?
Absolutely terrible.
That is a betrayal by not just your partner but your sister, not just your sister but your partner.
Yeah.
That's families broken every which way.
It's pretty disastrous in fairness, isn't it?
That's awful. They should be ashamed of themselves. That's an awful thing to do to anybody. That's dreadful. That poor woman, I presume woman, because sister in bed. Yeah, that's shocking. Maybe get back in touch with us. We might see if we could do anything for you. Back to this query. There's advice to be given to the woman in the relationship, in the marriage, and there's advice to be given to the friend. If you were advising the woman, she's in a marriage, she says she's unhappy, her husband has had affairs, the kids are grown, but she's staying because marriage is for life. It could be that she believes marriage is for life, or it could be that she just is making an excuse why she's staying because she doesn't really want to leave.
Yeah, and maybe doesn't want to leave or has no place to go to. I mean, how much money do you have at 58 years of age? We don't know this person's financial circumstances, but we know what rents are like. It's just chaos out there. So I mean, like, what do you do?
A lot of people don't want to start all over at 58.
They really don't, and the energy levels are gone completely from the idea of having to go out onto the dating scene, and meet new people, or maybe even not meet new people, but just be alone. To a large extent, a lot of people stay in relationships that they're not particularly satisfied in because they're lonely, and they know that being completely alone would be worse than the companion that they've grown to be acclimatized to.
And that therein lies the rub. Is it true, David? Are you better off on your own, or are you better off in a relationship that's a bit meh? Is one of those better than the other, or is it hard? Like, suppose the relationship isn't toxic, isn't violent, isn't abusive. It's just a bit meh.
Well, but most relationships get to being meh eventually. It's about what do you do with that? Do you as a couple, look for the best in each other? Do you bring out the best in each other? Do you work towards trying to be exciting or have excitement in the relationship? Or do you just give up and go, right, that's it now? It's just me and you, and we're just going to talk about the same things we talked about yesterday.
Oh God, that's really depressing.
It is depressing, but that's people's choice.
I think
I'd
rather be on my own than that one. That sounds appalling. Okay, but I'm weird in my own way. But what about advice for the friend? Because I think the friend is getting stuck in here in a way that she's crossing a boundary.
Yeah.
I have friends whose marriages are not all phenomenally good, as does, I'm sure, everybody. But it's not up to me to tell them you should leave and your husband is this or your wife is that. That's not my business.
No, I think the friend is trying to be very supportive potentially, and that's a really good thing. But support means asking questions like, are you okay, or how was today, or how was the weekend away, whatever as the case may be, rather than telling somebody how they should live their lives. That's not quite supportive. That's a little bit more on the controlling side of things. So that actually puts a strain on the friendship as well.
This email just strikes me as very, very bossy. I wouldn't give directive advice to a friend about their marriage. I would listen and I would give supportive stuff, and if they actually did separate, I might be more like, oh yeah, I never liked him or whatever, but I wouldn't be doing it while they're still together, because I just think it's crossing a line.
But even in that, I mean, sometimes friends break up, or you know if people are breaking up, and you think, God, I never liked your husband at all anyway, but then they get back together.
I know
again. And that happens all the time.
Not a good move.
No.
Not a good move by anybody.
Happen and people
A lot of people sort of agreeing with me on this, and said the friend is looking for somebody to go drinking and partying with, and she wants somebody else in the same boat as herself. Somebody else says, Ciara, I'm in a newish relationship with a lovely man. It's not perfect, but the kindness and the companionship is the most important thing. And I think that's probably true, particularly if you are older, which maybe I'm now older people, sorry if I'm insulting you, but maybe when you're not as lusty as you were when you were younger, maybe when sex isn't such a big issue, maybe when it isn't all about how much you fancy somebody, maybe what it actually is about how much you rub along with somebody and kind of get on with them. Yeah,
and how much respect is there, and how much interest and enthusiasm is there, because you can find somebody incredibly attractive no matter what age you are, but if they don't want to be in your company, or they're not interesting to talk to, then all the good looks in the world aren't going to make up for a bore.
Yeah, well, there is that. So ultimately, what are we saying? We're saying,
tell the friend to back off a little bit.
Back off, sister.
A little bit, yeah, I just think so. And if this woman wants to reach out for help, she is capable of reaching out for help, I suspect. So, I mean, there's plenty of people she can talk to.
And maybe she's just happy enough, and maybe she likes a good moan to her friends without actually wanting.
Yeah,
she may be having a bit of a moan, but not actually wanting to go anywhere. And maybe that's her right. And, don't go getting involved in other people's lives, maybe. Thank you for that indeed, David. We'll be talking to you, of course, next Tuesday. Loads of people still getting involved on the Christmas card thing. I can't believe the response to Christmas cards. Someone says, Ciara, I am like you. I have also sent texts from my head. and not sent them in actual fact. But I do love sending Christmas and birthday cards, and I always get one back, and I would only send one in the post because it's an excuse if somebody won't bother going for a stamp. Love the programme. I'm in bed after keyhole surgery on my knee last week, but feeling great. Had such a successful operation too, and the healthcare was the very best. They should all get a mention. They're brilliant. Fair play. I hope your knee is doing good. That's all really, really good. Someone else says, my pet hate is the people who announce on social media that they're donating to charity in lieu of sending cards. Donate to charity and send cards. Don't go looking for praise on Facebook for redirecting funds. Rant over, and that's from Joanne. And that's actually in reply to somebody earlier who said that they put it up. And somebody else says, my nana would put all our cards up on the walls, adding to them every year. And as kids, we had fun spotting the cards we sent. You know, my parents used to do that too. There was a house full of cards, and they weren't all from any given year. They were from loads of years. They were kept year in, year out. And it was a very nice thing.